Hey guys, Mr. Kyle at Myers Mathematics. This is September 10th factoring. So we've got 4 problems. Since it's an even number day, we've got x squared plus 4x plus 3, x squared minus 4x plus 3, x squared plus 4x plus 4, and then x squared minus 4x plus 4. So 4 different problems. Ooh, let me make sure I'm using the right color first here. We've got 4 problems that we're doing today. 4 problems. So let's just dive right in. So this is what you do. And then, by the way, if you're new to factoring, whenever you have, let me make sure I'm using the right numbers here. Whenever you have something in front of x squared, you have to do a little bit different of a method. But since we don't, right, we have a 1. There's a 1 here. We don't need to worry about the number that goes in front if it is a 1, like it is here. But the trick is, you take the last number, 3, and you need 2 things that multiply to give you 3. So in this case, there's only really 2 things that multiply to give you 3. If you're not including, decimals or fractions or anything. 3 and 1. That's it. Or 1 and 3. Doesn't really matter which way you put it. And then we need to make 4 when we add. So that's the trick to factoring, right? You need to multiply to get the last number, and you need to take the same 2 numbers and add or subtract. In this case, add to get the middle number here. So if we make both 3 and 1 positive, I add 3 and 1 together and I get positive 4. And that's it. So throw an x in front, throw an x in front, and we're done. All right, let's move on to the next one. It's the same thing, but with a minus 4. So same thing, but with a minus 4. X squared minus 4x plus 3. So again, 3 can only be multiplied by 2 numbers to get 3. Right? 3 and 1. So, but we can't just do plus 3 and plus 1 because now we need a negative 4. So we have to make them both negative. If we make them both negative, both the 3 and the 1, then when I multiply them, I get positive 3 still. Right? Negative times a negative is a positive. So I still get positive 3 when I multiply. But now if I add negative 3 and negative 1 together, I get negative 4. So that's what we want to do. All right? And then just throw an x in front, and you're done. Right? Now, for the last 2 here, we've got x squared plus 4x plus 4. X squared plus 4x plus 4. All right, so same thing, right? There's actually 2 different things that give you 4, right? 1 and 4, and 2 and 2. If I do 1 and 4 and I add them, I get 5 though. And I want to get 4 when I add, so I need to use the 2. 2 is the only number that if you multiply it by itself and you add it to itself, it gives you the same answer. I guess besides 0, but in the natural number system, I suppose. But if I add 2 and 2, I get 4, and that's what I want to do. I want to add them and get the middle number here. So I need to make them both positive, and now I'm going to put an x in front, and I'm done. Well, actually, there's one more thing I could do. You don't really have to do, but since I'm multiplying the same thing here, x plus 2 times x plus 2, I can actually write it like this. Right? And I did a video on this before when I did x plus 1 quantity squared, but basically whenever you have a number and you multiply it by itself, that's exactly what we mean when we say that number to the power of 2. So that's what's happening here. Even though it's an x plus 2 and then there's another x plus 2, right? So there's 2 x plus 2's. Even though it's a quantity and not just one thing like 3 times 3, it's still something times itself. So I can still write it as something squared, right? And then we can do the same thing with the last problem today. So it's x squared minus 4x plus 4. X squared minus 4x plus 4. So same thing, right? I already know that 4 is 1 times 4, but it's going to add to give me 5, or negative 5 if I make them both negative. I can't just make one of them negative and one of them positive, because that would give me 3 anyways, but it also wouldn't work because I need positive 4 when I multiply. So I know 2 and 2 work to give me positive 4, and then of course I can make them both negative. That way they multiply to give me positive 4, and they add to give me negative 4. Right? So I can make them both negative. That way it works out, and I get the same thing. Right? X minus 2 times x minus 2. So I can write it as x minus 2 quantity squared. All right, That's it for today, guys.